Hey guys, I'm Becky and welcome to another episode of Read 'em or Reap. Read 'em or Reap is a series that I started in 2025 to try and tackle all of my unread physical books. The soft goal is to read or reap as many books as possible within a week. The hard goal is to try and read or reap at least 2 books every time. And I will be doing this via mood reading, so I'll be picking the books with you in these videos and then vlogging my reading progress. Now, if I read them, I can still reap them, but basically these books need to get off of the shelf and either go somewhere else or go on my physical read and loved shelves, which eventually will be bleeding over to these ones, which is why this project is so needed. Now, we started the year with 166 books on these shelves. In the first episode, we read 3, which means we are down to 163, and we'll see how far we can get in this one. Now, I did already start the first book for this vlog yesterday. I couldn't wait. I just wanted to jump in. I needed an audiobook, and I have this on audio and was like, yes, I already know this is a book I want to read for the series, so let's just start it a day early. So that book is Bull Moon Rising by Ruby Dixon. This is going to be my first Minotaur monster romance. I have read many other creatures, but this is my first Minotaur. And for some reason, like this and orcs, I'm like, I don't know about those. So we're gonna see with this one if I can get behind Minotaurs, because I do have like 2 others on my TBR, not physically, thankfully, but yeah, so we're gonna find out if Minotaurs are for me. Now, I'm a huge fan of Ruby Dixon, and when this book came out, I was like, I don't know about that because of the Minotaurs. But then I saw how freaking beautiful this physical copy is. Like, are you joking? Are you joking? Like, I had to own it. This is too beautiful to not own. So I'm hoping that Minotaurs are for me, because I think regardless, I'm going to keep this because it's just stunning. It's absolutely beautiful. I mean, no matter what, it's going to be a wild ride, which will make up for if I'm not into Minotaurs. But, you know, obviously I spent physical real money on this book to get a physical real copy, but I had like a whole bunch of coupons. It was like half off, plus I had like $10 in Barnes & Noble rewards points, so I think this ended up being like $5 or $10, which is absolutely crazy. I am currently like 35% of the way through it, and it's interesting. We really haven't gotten into what makes this a Minotaur romance just yet. We have had descriptions of sex, so like he kind of explains what happens a little bit. It has not actually happened yet. And then we did have one sex scene where he is pleasuring her, but we haven't gotten to like the meat and potatoes. I can't call it that. We haven't gotten into like the real descriptive on page it's happening in this book yet, which shall be interesting based on what has been described so far. So what this book is about is, it's kind of hard to explain. And honestly, like, the plot didn't grab me. Just the fact that it's Ruby Dixon and it's beautiful grabbed me, which I don't normally do that. But it's this world where there are magical artifacts, and the wealthy have these artifacts. I don't really know if it's like a currency or what, but it's like if you are somebody of social standing, you have an artifact, and a working one at that. Unfortunately, our main character's father has a gambling issue, and he has sold off all of their artifacts, which means that their family is basically going to be in ruin, and that means that bad people can come and just like steal their estate from them, is kind of how it's been described. So our main character has decided to go to the city, and she's going to become a magical artifact finder. Now, there's a term that I don't remember. There is a official title. So she is going to train to try to become one of these. She is then going to hopefully find some magical artifacts and save her family. Now, the problem is that she finds out, even though it is not an official rule, that there is a whole bunch of misogyny in this book, and they're telling her that because she's a woman, she can't become one. And when she pushes it, of like, it's not in the rules, they're like, well, you have to have a chaperone, give permission. that you're allowed to do this. And she snuck away to do this. So she can't get her father's permission. We have our other main character, who is someone who teaches people how to become this, and he is a Minotaur. And it is about to be Minotaur mating season, or rather, like, there's some moon that happens that forces Minotaurs to rut. Describing this book is just making it so much worse. And at least if you have like a wife or a long-term partner, it makes it better, because it's kind of like, it's more meaningful, and you have a person that you're like, I can go be with this person until this moon sets, because it's kind of like an uncontrollable urge. And Minotaurs kind of like go out of their mind with lust. So he doesn't know what he's going to do because this moon is about to happen. And I'm assuming that this moon only happens every once in a while, because our main female character is 30. I don't believe it's been said how old he is, but he said that this is his third moon, but he's definitely an adult. Like, he's definitely same age or older than our main character. So it must happen like every once in a while for this like debilitating urge to do this happens. Maybe this is normal Minotaur lore. But again, first Minotaur romance book. So our main character, Asbeth, convinces Hawk, who is our Minotaur, to train her and be her chaperone, and in exchange, she will marry him and help him through this rutting season. And that's kind of where we are. Now, this book is very much giving, like, cozy fantasy vibes so far. They definitely have some sort of attraction to each other. Like, our main character does come from wealth and status, but she is kind of a bookworm. She has never really had any friends before. She doesn't have like the conventional thinking of a wealthy person, because like Minotaurs are looked down on, even though they desperately need them in order for the society to thrive, because they can navigate the tunnels and underground system to find these magical artifacts better than anyone. But of course, they're looked down on. And she doesn't have those like prejudice in her head. And then for him, he has never really found somebody that he could see being long-term, and he understands that this is just like a contractual obligation, but he does need somebody to help him get through this, and he really doesn't want it to be with a prostitute. So if I would have stopped where I kind of thought I would stop last night, I would be telling you that this book is a little bit boring. Like, it's interesting, but it is very much, like I said, like a cozy fantasy vibe, so like not really a ton is happening. Like, they're being trained, but the stakes don't feel high. Like, I don't feel any anxiety during this book so far, which is really nice. And it is like kind of comical. Like, we have Asbeth, who has convinced her lady's maid to become an artifact finder with her. And she's like, it's gonna be great. I've read everything about it. It's gonna be so easy. And like, she doesn't really understand like the physical manual labor that goes into it, the risks that go into it, and all this. So like, it's kind of comical, but she's just like, whatever, we'll get through it. You know, so it is a little boring, but the romance side of things is starting to pick up a little bit. Like I said, we just had our first scene where he is pleasuring her, because he does find out that she is a virgin, and he's like, I don't think you understand what you signed up for, and we should kind of like get to know each other on more of a sexual level, because I'm not going to be in my right mind when this moon rises. So I want you to know, like, I would never hurt you, but I can't physically control myself when this happens. So like, we kind of need to get to know one another and create trust so that we can get through this together. So the scene was pretty, like, I want to say intense, just because like it is dual POV, so we are getting like his point of view while he's pleasuring her, and it's pretty wild, like everything that's going on in his head. So I feel like now it is no longer as boring as I thought, because we are starting to advance in like the romance plot of it. We are slightly progressing in the plot of her becoming a artifact finder, but not really a whole ton. Like, they are still just training. And we are starting to get like a little bit of like a found family with her and the other cadets, if you will, who are training with her. So yeah, I am going to be finishing this up and updating you throughout the process. Now, as for the second book, we will, or at least the next book, so hopefully we can read more than that, we will be picking that out together once I finish this, because I really don't have any other ideas right now of what that next book is going to be. I would like to kind of figure it out with you guys. I will update you once I get farther into this book and can tell you my thoughts and feelings. I wanted to quickly update you guys because I am 65% of the way through Full Moon Rising, and I feel like the next time I update you, it's going to be that it's done. So I kind of wanted to check in real quick before that happens. So I think I might be at the third act breakup, even though I feel like normally it happens a little bit further in the book, but I feel like we're like at a precipice within this book because somebody has figured out our main character, Asbeth, her true identity. Because I think I did tell you guys, like, she doesn't want anybody to know that she's wealthy or where she comes from because obviously that'll put her in danger, but also I think they'll be like less willing to help her because they might be thinking like she's greedy or something. I'm not fully sure other than like the safety aspect of why she's not telling people who she is. And I know that there is like a slight more reason of why she's hiding it from her two teachers, one of them being her husband. And that's because of like their viewpoints and thoughts on, what are they called? Holders? I think it's holders. The people who like have the artifacts and it makes them wealthy. I'm pretty sure they're called holders. Somebody has figured out her identity, and well, I guess if I'm telling you it's a third act breakup, then her husband is going to figure out who she is. So I just got to the part where he discovers who she is and calls her out on it, and then I stopped. I feel like that would make the most sense for there to be this third act breakup of like them finally coming to this precipice where they're going to have to admit their feelings for each other, that they're real, they're not just about convenience and this mutual contract, if you will. But also like, I'm used to that happening at like 75, 80% mark, not 65. So is it the third act? I don't know. But I am over 50%, which is when I want to be updating you guys. So I feel like this is a good point to kind of like check in and see how things are. We have had another like pretty intense sex scene where there is a act of voyeurism involved, which was pretty wild. I don't think I've ever read about that, at least not to this degree. So that was interesting. But this book does really have like a good plot. And I feel like for those who may blush easily, like while like the smut is smutting and is very much not normal or what you could be used to or conventional, if you will, I still think you might be able to like enjoy this. I don't think somebody who blushes easily and isn't really into like smutty dark romance, creature romance, that kind of thing, I don't know if it would be a 5-star necessarily, but I think you would still enjoy it. I think it would be like a 3 or a 4, at least so far. That's with like me giving it 5 stars. And I don't know if it's gonna get 5. But like there is like a true plot. And like even though that kind of feels like a big kind of juxtaposition of going from like intense smut scene to like an actual storyline, I love it. I'm here for it. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's like all I really want to update you on right now because I am like trying to make these non-spoilery at the same time. So just know I think I'm at the third act breakup and I'm still enjoying it. Like it's not as boring as I kind of thought with like the first, I don't know, maybe 20%. Basically until we get to like the first sexual act scene, it's a little bit boring. Now that I've like had that and I'm farther in, I feel like this is very much like a cozy fantasy, but also just like extreme smut, which is like kind of weird, but it kind of works. I feel like you expect that from Ruby Dixon, so it's not that wild. But if this is like your first Ruby Dixon, you're just like, whoa. But I'm enjoying it. Hello friends, it is Wednesday morning. I've already recorded this clip just to find out I did not have record going. So that's on me. It's Wednesday morning, I have silent book club tonight, and last night I finished Full Moon Rising. So we need to quickly, because I leave very, very soon for work, we need to quickly pick a book together so I can start that tonight, and I figured while I'm looking I can kind of tell you my thoughts on Full Moon Rising. It's like a weird angle for you guys, but we are at my unread shelves. You are on the shelf now, so I can pick out a book. Full Moon Rising. I finished it last night, and I feel like I'm gonna give it, I think, 4 stars. It was enjoyable, but it was very much like a cozy fantasy that just had like extreme smut in it, which was a kind of wild juxtaposition, but like it kind of worked, I think, because of like the content of it being a bull or a minotaur. But like at the same time, it it didn't have those 5-star vibes. And what I was telling you guys was the third act breakup. It turned out that it was. At first, I thought I was going to have to update you and be like, okay, just kidding, I don't think it's a third act breakup. But it was. It was a third act breakup, and then something crazy happened. So instead of them kind of like resolving that, something crazy happens that like pushes them even more together, and then they admit their feelings afterwards. So I still enjoyed it, but I don't know, there was nothing about it that I was just like obsessed with. I did think, like, again, like how Allie Hazelwood did, I think that the nodding was done well. It like somehow was done in the best way possible, and I felt like it was palatable. And I mean, this book is dirty. So if you're not used to like dark romance and smut books and things like that, it might be a lot for you. But I had a good time. It was a fun vibe. I think like realistically, it's like a 3.5, 3.75. And move over here. Like not bad. Not bad at all. I'm trying to like grab out all of the ones that are like relatively short. So I'm in like a weird mood. Like on one hand, I kind of want like darkness. Hello? Can you see? Okay, there we go. On one hand, I kind of want like something fluffy and fun, and on the other hand, I kind of want like almost like a thriller or something. Okay, so I have a pretty large stack going, so let's quickly go through them. We have The Fine Art of Pretending by Rachel Harris. We have Hunted by DJ DeSmiter, who I actually know in real life, so that's kind of intimidating because what if I don't like it? Then I have book 2 to the Silky Stackhouse series. I have Sweet Dreams by Rachel Hawthorne, which is like a winter like teen romance. I have Live Forever by Amy Talkington. I have Hello Goodbye and Everything in Between by Jennifer E. Smith, as well as The Statistical Probability of Love at First Sight, and then Teach Me to Forget by Erica M. Chapman. And I think I can rule out Hello Goodbye and Everything in Between just because I'm not feeling like this is about 2 high school sweethearts who are about to go off to college, and they're deciding if they want to stay together or like do the long distance or just break up and see, you know, if they end up back together or something. I don't know if I'm like in that headspace for that, you know? So I think I'm just going to think a little bit on these. I'll take a picture and figure it out at work, and then I'll update you tonight any final thoughts on Bull Moon Rising and what I decided to start. So I'll see you guys then. Hi, I am back from work, and I wanted to update you guys on my reading. I'm currently watching The Real Housewives of Potomac Reunion Episode 2. I love the show so much. It's so good. It's so good. But while I'm in the middle of a commercial break, I just wanted to come and talk to you a bit about my reading. So Bull Moon Rising, I don't think that there is much else to tell you guys. I think that I pretty much covered it all this morning when I was quickly talking about it with you. But in the event that footage stinks, I will just say that I'm giving this 4 stars on Goodreads, 3.75 in the places that I can. And I felt like it was a cozy fantasy that was like really just juxtaposed with Minotaur smut. Like it was a good time. There are parts that I definitely enjoyed, but it just didn't have that 5-star appeal. It just kind of existed. And that was fine. Like the sexy parts were really sexing, and the cozy parts were really cozying. And it seemed to kind of work well together. Like it didn't feel weird, to be honest, but it just, you know, it just didn't, you know? So I think that's pretty much all I have to say about it. Like my short and sweet review is kind of how this book is, even though it is not short at all. It's a very long book. The audio, ridiculous, by the way. Ridiculous long. I think it's like 18 hours or something crazy, which I will make a comment on that. So I did listen to it on audio, and the narrator has like, I don't know what kind of accent it is. I want to say it's British, but I could be wrong. She has some sort of accent, and I don't know, it was just a little bit too posh. I know that our main character is supposed to be like rich and everything, but I don't know, it just felt a little bit too posh for her character. Like I definitely wouldn't have read it in that voice physically. Like that wouldn't have been the voice in my head while I was reading. But it worked, and it was fine. Like it was fine. So now, I did start a book today at Silent Book Club, and that book is The Statistical Probability of Love at First Sight by Jennifer E. Smith. I decided to go with this just because it kind of seemed like it would be like quick, easy, and fun. Like that's kind of what I'm in the mood for, like I was telling you guys. Like I either wanted something that would just be like a fun, cutesy romance or something that's a little bit thrilling in terms of like a darker subject book, like an actual thriller. So I think honestly it was probably between this and Live Forever, which I was looking up the descriptions at work today to decide what I was going to read. And for that one, it's actually about a girl who's going to like this fancy art school, and they've got like some weird traditions and ritual things like that. And she sees this guy who I think is kind of an outcast, and she kind of wants to get to know him. And people are like just let him go. Well, then she ends up dying, and she comes back as a ghost, obviously. And he's the only one that can like see her and the other ghosts. And they have to try to solve, like, I think her murder, but also what's going on at this school. So it was kind of like this, like, paranormal thriller murder mystery kind of thing. And that did seem really interesting and definitely, like, kind of piqued my interest. But then I was like, you know what? This is just, for some reason, I'm gravitating towards this. Like, it's a nice little, it's a nice little short read. And that's what I'm, like, in the mood for right now. I've been reading a lot this month. And I feel like I just need something as kind of like a palate cleanser and also something I can like quickly get through so that this month can be over. So I decided to go with this one. I don't think I told you anything about it this morning. I think the only one I told you about was the one that I decided to not go with, which was another Jennifer E. Smith book. So this one is about a girl whose parents got divorced and it was kind of messy. It seems like her dad may have left her mom for another woman because of how quickly he got into this new relationship. And now it's like a year and a half or so since then. She is at the airport to get on a flight to London, because that's where her dad is now, to attend his wedding. And she has still yet to meet the stepmom. This will be the first time she meets her stepmom. And unfortunately, she ends up missing her flight. And while waiting at the airport, she meets this guy who is also headed to London. And they kind of like hit it off in this time period, or this time span of waiting for the new flight she's going to be on, and then the flight to get to London, because they end up sitting next to each other. And I think that it's like, you know, can someone fall in love in such a short amount of time, and will they end up like finding each other? Because it also turns out that he goes to college in the same town she lives in. So it's like, what are the chances of meeting this person? What is the statistical probability that like the right circumstances would happen for them to meet? Because they probably, even though they were in the same city and now they're on the same flight, like what are the chances of all of these things lining up correctly? Especially because she wasn't even supposed to be on that flight. I was a little worried it was going to go a little bit more into like the math side of things. Like I thought like maybe she was going to be like a mathlete or something and would constantly be talking about like math jargon. And that's not it at all. Which is very interesting. So I think I was like 60 some pages into the book, but I'm on chapter 6. So I've read 5 chapters so far. In the physical book, that is 67 pages. And so far, like, it's pretty interesting. Like, I'm intrigued because our main character is dealing with the trauma of her parents getting divorced, that it could be possibly due to another woman, that other woman could possibly be her new stepmom. The like lack of transparency, because obviously her parents aren't talking to her about this, while also trying to co-parent and also feel like she needs to take a side. So dealing with all of that trauma, on top of she is starting to have claustrophobia and panic attacks. And I believe it has started with her parents splitting up. Like her dad went to London, he's a professor, and he went to London to teach at this school. And it was like a big deal, big opportunity. But unfortunately, she, I think, was in the middle of school. Or no, she was about to start her like sophomore or junior year of high school. And her mom couldn't be away from her shop for that long. So they stayed behind while he went to London for a semester. And then he just never came back. So like to deal with like the abandonment issues and all of that, it created all these other issues. And so we're trying to like kind of understand where she's coming from, what did actually happen with her parents, this, you know, possible new romance and things like that. It's just very interesting because we kind of just get dropped right into like her being at the airport and finding out that she missed her flight by 4 minutes. So it's, you know, it's very much kind of like you're in the middle of the action, but at the same time, like it's not fast paced. And also, like, it's less than 300 pages long, but we're 60 pages in and she's almost done with her flight. So it's like, are you going to convince me that they should be together? Is going to be the real, like, interesting piece of this book. Plus, at the same time, she is very much like a dramatic teenager. So you see her behaving in a way that's, like, justified on one hand, but also it's like, yeah, I remember doing stuff like that. Like, I understand her feelings, especially when it comes to her dad, because I also have issues with my dad. So, like, I can understand, like, from her point of view of these kinds of things. Not for the same reasons at all, by the way. But I understand what it's like to have, like, a strained relationship and to kind of feel loyal to your mom. But then on the other hand, like, she is kind of acting out and lashing out and being a little bit, like, immature and dramatic. Like, her mom is trying to explain to her that if she misses this wedding, she might regret it one day, and, you know, he is still your father and stuff like that, and kind of, like, pushing her to go and be with him, even though she's like, I don't understand why you would even want me to be around him. And so she kind of lashes out at her mom on the way to the airport, or at the airport, rather, and, like, makes a comment about, like, if something happens, like, the plane goes down, this is your fault. You know, like, stuff like that, where it's like, you really didn't have to do that. But her frontal lobe, it's not formed, so we get it. But so far, like, it's interesting. I'm intrigued. Like, it's a very real life, slice of life, mundane kind of book, but it's interesting. And it's been a minute since I've read something kind of like this, especially from the teenage point of view. So I'm here. I'm in it. I think I'm going to stick with it and tell you guys how it goes. So I'm hoping. When is the last day of February? Friday. So counting today, that's 3 days. Yeah, we can do this. We can definitely do it. And I might even switch to the audio. So it's going to happen. So I will keep you updated on my thoughts on this book. But I just want to tell you, I started it. We're doing it. Did I finish this book? Yes. Did I enjoy it? No. Oh my God, no. So what's interesting is that I started February, the first book that I read in February, ended up getting 2 stars. And now possibly the last book I'll read this month is also getting 2 stars. I think it's so funny how, like, yesterday I was so positive about this book and was, like, vibing with it. I mean, I was only 5 chapters in, but, like, I was feeling good and, like, we'll see if it can convince me if they're meant to be. And there's nothing good about this book, okay? There's not anything good. The entire thing is completely unbelievable, unrealistic, and just nutso. Just completely nuts. So I told you, like, the premise of the book yesterday, but, like, without getting into too many spoilers, I'm gonna tell you some things, and am I spoiling it? I don't know. This book has been out for a long time. When did this book come out, actually? Because it makes some, like, pop culture references that were really not a good choice, because it, like, really dates the book and also doesn't make great sense. 2012. Okay, this book came out in 2012. So I am going to spoil it. So basically what happens is that you want me to believe that a girl misses her flight, just so happens to get on this guy's flight who is a year older than her, which also doesn't fully make sense. I'm pretty sure that, maybe it makes sense. She has just finished her junior year of high school. The guy is 1 year older than her, and he is finishing his first year of college. Make it make sense. Maybe it's his first semester, but I could have sworn he said his first year. It doesn't make any sense. And he's only 18, and she's 17. What are you talking about? But anyways, you want me to believe that a girl who lives in a college town misses her flight, ends up on a flight with a guy who is relatively the same age as her, who ends up sitting next to her, who is physically and personality-wise attracted to you, and you get along. You then, like, basically have these whirlwind feelings for each other. You make it to your dad's wedding on time, but then you overhear that his new wife, who you are just now meeting for the very first time, might be pregnant, or is pregnant. And then you find out that the guy you met on the plane isn't going to a wedding like you assumed, and that he kind of went along with, but it's actually a funeral for his father. And so you travel there. You leave your dad's wedding without really his permission. You just tell him, I gotta go. And your dad just lets you in London, where you've never been before, to travel on your own with hardly any money in your pocket, by the way. That you're going to travel there to find this guy that you just met for about 7 hours. You're going to somehow not only find and have enough money to get to the town that he grew up in, but find the right church that the funeral is happening at. Show up unexpectedly. And then when he's not happy to see you, you somehow still have enough money to make it back. And your dad's not pissed at you. And you decide to no longer be mad at him. And you find out your new stepmom is not pregnant, that she wants to be, and she believes in manifesting. So she just puts it out there in the universe and just says it's happening until it finally does. And then that guy shows up at your dad's wedding and nobody has an issue with it. Nobody's like, what the fuck's going on? And also when you cry to your dad and your mom about how you basically fell in love with this guy and you just, randomly showed up to his dad's funeral and messed everything up. And neither one is like, you're young and stupid. They're just like, that's love. And then he shows up to your dad's wedding and nobody's upset and nobody says anything. And you just like fall in love. And also, it just so happens that even though he grew up in London, he just so happens to go to college in the town where you live. The statistical probability of any of those things happening is very low. And the statistical probability of all of those things happening is 0. It's just 0. Okay, what? Like, all those things I just told you, those all really happened. And, like, it turns out, like, yeah, her dad did cheat on her mom with this new wife. And, like, it's fine. And also her mom's totally fine with it. And it's just, like, and it's only been, like, a year and a half. What? Like, come on. Like, I'm sorry, but this book was so, like, cookie cutter perfect, but also unrealistic and unbelievable every step of the way. And then on top of it, like, they do have, like I was saying, they, like, kind of mention, not necessarily pop culture. I know that there was, like, mention of some duck movie, and I really truly don't know what they're talking about. And maybe at the time, if I read this book, I would know what movie they're talking about. Maybe it was a real movie. I feel like it was. But they do talk about, like, technology and security and customs and things like that. It's like the things that are happening in this book would not fly. But they do make a reference that they have cell phones, and they're flip phones. But then she's like, before they split ways at the airport, she's like, oh my god, I am like, quickly trying to find like a pen or something so I can get his phone number. You have a cell phone. Put it in your contacts. Like, flip phones in 2012, you could definitely put someone's contact in. So weird. I don't know. The whole thing's just ridiculous. And on top of it, the way that she finds out that it's his dad's funeral is, like, she just knows, like, how much he was kind of, like, bitching about how terrible his dad is. So that's how she kind of figured out, like, who it probably was that died. But it just so happens that somebody who's attending her dad's wedding also knows his family and is like, hey, congratulations, we gotta go to this funeral. We're gonna try to come back for your reception later. Because, again, that's, like, another 6 hours after the wedding. And so she just so happens to hear that, and she's like, what? What's a funeral? And she's like, oh my god, that's gotta be him. And she has been having panic attacks ever since she found out about her dad cheating on her mom and leaving, and somehow makes it through the plane ride and 2 rides on the tube, plus a bus ride that ends up taking her in the wrong direction, and doesn't have a panic attack once, including even after her heart's broken. What? But also ends up having enough money for that, even though she makes a mention after she takes a taxi to get to the wedding how she hardly has any money left, but somehow is able to afford all that, and conveniently makes it just in time for the wedding, makes it just in time for the rehearsal, just runs off in the in-between times, and the bride isn't even a little bit ticked off of, like, this is supposed to be my day and this whole fucking day has been about you. Okay, my battery died, because even my battery was exhausted with this book. What was I even saying? Dang it. Oh, I think, and she's so upset about her dad cheating on her mom and getting with this new woman and then just leaving her and living in London for the rest of his life, and possibly wanting to start this new family and everything, and just has panic attacks, has hardly talked to him, and just forgives him. Like, just truly decides, like, hey, this isn't worth my energy. I know I'm not mature in any other sense of the word for any other situation that's happened in the last 24 hours, because that's literally the entire time frame this book takes place in. But somehow I am mature enough to just let go and be the bigger person of my feelings about this. And her dad is also like, yes, I want us to come together, and they're good. Like, come on. I had such high hopes, and I knew that, like, this book was maybe gonna touch it a little too close to home because of what I mentioned yesterday of like, I too also have an estranged relationship with my father. And it, it definitely touched some feelings, but just like, I don't know. Like, your dad messed up big time. Like, the abandonment on top of the cheating, on top of the divorce, on top of, not even making an effort, really. And you're just gonna, like, it's not like they had this deep, meaningful conversation and, they both agreed to, like, try to do better and work through this or go to therapy. None of that. It's just, she cried to him about this boy. And she realized that, like, the dad she always knew was still there. And come on. So no, this book is getting 2 stars, and I am not keeping it. I'm going to keep it long enough to make my granny square, since I'm doing a book blanket this year, but once I take the photo, once I make the square and take the photo, this book is going to a tiny daily library or somewhere, but not around here, Benna. Not around here. Oh, what else pisses me off? One last thing about this stupid book is that the only reason it's not getting 1 star is because I did feel compelled to finish it, and I think part of it was just me being like, just like so baffled about how unrealistic it was that I had to like finish it and find out what happens. And it's like, there's only a couple minutes left at this point. I might as well just keep going. But I had to work the morning shift today at work, and I normally work nights. So it was extremely hard for me to not only just regular get up this morning, but I stayed up till like past 4 a.m. reading this stupid book because I just couldn't stop and I was having a little bit of insomnia. So I just kept listening to this book until I finished it, to then only get less than 4 hours of sleep, to then work all day and then go to a high school play for one of my patrons. I'm exhausted. Tomorrow is the last day of the month, but I think I'm going to go ahead and just close out this vlog as I did read the 2 allotted books that I need to do. Because right now, I'm not feeling a pull to a book on my shelf right now, especially one that I could get done in the time frame that this month ends, and I want to just like start fresh with March. I think I'm just going to end this Read 'em or Reap. We read 2, we're going to reap 1, and just call it a night. But I hope that you enjoyed episode 2 of Read 'em or Reap. I think I'm doing episode 3 kind of earlier in the month to try to kind of get it out of the way, because March is my birthday month and I kind of want to take that whole week of my birthday like off of editing and vlogging, so that way I can just like read and relax and just like self-heal for my birthday. So I should see you guys relatively soon and we'll figure out what we're going to read together. And as always, don't forget to keep reading, stay safe, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!